This is POV. Your doctor said you're healthy, right? And then she goes on to write, I think people find it hard to believe a plus size girl could be healthy. Everyone's different. Everyone has different issues. I don't have diabetes, high blood pressure, or any of that. I might be big, but I make sure I'm okay. It's my problem, and I'm not asking for any opinions. The only thing that almost took me out a couple weeks ago was the flu. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we are going to be talking about a page that I feel follows a very common practice that we see nowadays, in that it is a rage bait farm, in my opinion, that just basically tries to funnel people to certain different sites to basically make money. But the reason that this page is a little bit different, I think, is because this is basically a rage bait farm in like kind of being plus size, unhealthy kind of stuff, right? And like rage baiting that kind of content to get people to go to another site, right? So this is Big Brave Babe, Milady Hernandez. And she makes a ton of content, basically, in my opinion, using her body and just kind of shoving it in front of your face and just making the most insane, over-the-top, bombastic content that she can to get people to be upset, to just basically get into the algorithm. And then from that, she tries to funnel people to different sites that she is charging for people to pay money to get access to certain videos and things like that. So to give you a little bit of an example of the kind of content that we're talking about, this is very common stuff that's on her page. What would you do if you saw me at an airport, right? And she's very deliberately set up 2 chairs to be on the ground, and she's sitting on them and taking up both of them, and then they'll always kind of look back at the camera. It's all very much so set up, as well as a video like this, right? Would you sit next to me on the flight? And it's very deliberately walking through the aisle of the flight, intentionally showing that you can barely fit on the seats, you can barely fit through the aisle. And then again, at the very end of the video, it's to look at the camera, kind of like basically being like, we're both in on the quote unquote joke. Like, you understand why I'm doing this. And just so you know, there are sites that you can go to that you can get even more content that is like this. This video I felt was pretty interesting. This seems to be a trip where she went to Disneyland or Disney World with another person that makes very similar content to this. I think it's just so bizarre, and personally I think it's kind of gross to be filming this type of content at Disneyland when there is a ton of kids. Like, maybe it's not clear that it's obviously kind of sexual, right? But watching it, it's so obvious what is happening here. And the fact that this is being filmed in a place, I don't know, it just feels so wrong to me. I don't know. I hate seeing stuff like this. And looking at the comments here, it's funny because a lot of people maybe don't realize that they're basically just being baited, right? Because some of the comments are genuinely like people saying nice things, right? Say, I wouldn't say anything, but I would be proud of you for walking. I work at a theme park, and most larger people are in electric wheelchairs. A theme park is a perfect place to exercise because it's fun. Right? It's sad to think that they may be too big to ride the rides, but they can still enjoy the park. Pray to stay healthy and pray for them both, right? And then this one right here, which is a very nice comment, but again, these are people that are posting this with no intention of making any change. They don't care about that, right? It is just about getting engagement online, right? Goes on to say, big girl to big girl, I went from size 24 to a 14, and the only thing I'm chasing now is health, not skinny. I'm still a big girl, just a flexible, joint protected, protein powered, peptide enhanced big girl. So she's talking about a GLP-1 thing, right? So blah, 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 got me out here feeling like my bones finally stopped filing HR complaints. There's zero reason to be swollen, tired, and hurting. Being a healthy big girl feels amazing if you want the best version of you. The peptides are peptiding, again, GLP-1s. The protein is proteining, and your body will thank you later. So again, like, there are a ton of people that see this type of content and they want to give a genuine word and say something actual. And it's just pointless because, again, this content doesn't exist for anything other than attention, rage baiting, and getting people that are interested in greederism content and different BBW type of content to go to their websites where they have much more intense content. This reel I saw and I thought it was funny because, again, I don't even believe that what she is saying actually happened. It just feels completely fake, right? So this is POV. Your doctor said you're healthy, right? And then she goes on to write, I think people find it hard to believe a plus size girl could be healthy. Everyone's different. Everyone has different issues. I don't have diabetes, high blood pressure, or any of that. I might be big, but I make sure I'm okay. It's my problem, and I'm not asking for any opinions. The only thing that almost took me out a couple weeks ago was the flu. So for me, like I say all the time, those things might be true, right? Those different markers that you have focused on with your doctors might not be showing, but I think anyone that has lived in a severely obese body for an extended period of time will tell you, as you get older, it gets harder and harder and harder, and you cannot expect to continuously to get larger and larger and larger and think that it's just all going to be fine and you'll continue being healthy, because that will not happen, right? As we get older, all of these things that maybe were laying dormant before in the past, they start to rear their ugly head, and we have a lot of different things that we have to start dealing with. And then the fact that you said that a flu almost took you out, I don't know if you're joking about that. Again, I don't know if any of this stuff is true, right? But the fact that you're relatively young and the flu is almost taking you out should be a sign of like, hey, this is no bueno, this is no good, and I need to start figuring things out. And I was looking through these reels, and it's clear that she wasn't always super overweight, right? Because we look at these videos, this is like the trend where it was like, you remember when you're 17 again and you realize that you haven't been 17 for a long time, right? And so we see, this is obviously, it must have been her when she was 17, 18 years old, and then it comes to a clip where that's more recent. And again, at the very end, she's holding out her hand, definitely making it seem like she's kind of asking for money, which seems to be a very common thing that we see in a lot of these posts. Now, if we can look at her Linktree, which is basically a website that has a bunch of different links that you can post. That's one link, and then you have a bunch of different links that will kind of branch off to other things. A lot of influencers use them for like Amazon wish lists or whatever, right? Selling merch and stuff like that. I have one. It's very useful. But as you can see, we have an OF. This curvage thing, I wish I could show you. I can't, but it's almost like OF basically for plus size individuals. There are some interesting videos on that site. To Treat Me, a Cash App link where you just send money, pay Miss Hernandez, right? Using PayPal. And so clearly this content exists solely to funnel people basically to these websites to pay this person money. The reason that this is so sad to me is because it's clear that this is, an individual that's not, super old, right? But clearly they have found a niche on social media and they are exploiting that niche, which isn't in and of itself a bad thing. The problem is the way that she is exploiting it, and other people in this, in this kind of content genre are exploiting it, in my opinion, are doing so to their detriment long-term, right? They are doing something that right now it might seem easy, right? I'm just going to eat a bunch of food and film myself in compromising positions and, basically funnel people to these different websites to pay me more money. That in and of itself, right? We kind of know what kind of work that is. It rhymes with schmeck's schwork. Like if someone wants to do that to their own volition, like they that's fine, right? But we are talking about that on top of pretty much intentionally making yourself more and more unhealthy and just setting yourself up for even worse failure, because you're going to get older. There's going to be less attention on your body because you are older, just in that. And then on top of it, you are going to be in a very large body that is going to take a lot of work to get that weight off. And even if you're like trying to have some plan, like a Nikocado avocado crazy transformation, you're doing it and you don't even really want to gain the weight and you're forcing yourself to gain the weight and you're just going to lose it after you're done. It's going to be very difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. You're going to be left with scars, right? When it, like, as far as like loose skin is concerned, that's going to be a problem, right? I'm assuming for someone that very much so obviously cares about their appearance, right? I still have loose skin. It's not something that a lot of people like to deal with. And so you're going to be left with that. So you're either going to have to deal with the loose skin, or you're going to be getting surgery and dealing with the scars and the recovery that comes with that. So that's another thing that you're going to have to deal with. And again, that's after you have basically used your body and abused it for years and years and years. I just feel like it's so sad to see this type of content be so prevalent on these social media sites, because I know that other people see it and then they want to copy it because they think that it's an easy buck. And maybe for right now it might be, but again, you have to pay the Pied Piper eventually. And in the future, you are going to be paying that debt. You are going to be dealing with that, right? And that is the dangerous part of it. It's always just very interesting to see the difference in content of this type, right? Which is very fetishized, kind of look how large I am and how hard life is because of how large I am, versus the opposite side of the spectrum where it's, health at every size, fat positivity kind of content where it's like, look how large I am and I can still do hard things and I can still do the stuff that other people think I can't do, right? I always find it fascinating to see these two sides of the coin, and I'm always just very curious what each side of that coin kind of thinks about the other side, right? Like I am always so curious what someone that is super fat positive feels about content like this that seems on the surface, I think, fat positive, but in reality, I feel like a lot of times it is catering to, in my opinion, kind of creepy people that are fetishizing the largeness of the body and maybe the struggle that body will have fitting on an airplane or finding a seat that they can fit in. Like, there's a difference between trying to accept the position that you're in and trying to monetize and fetishize the position that you're in. But those are just my thoughts on the situation. I think that it's very interesting, and I would love to know what other people think down in the comments section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.